Is it Athens you have come to save?
No, I can't!
With its unique use of flashbacks and non-linear storytelling, God of War took gamers on a journey filled not only with adventure, but with powerful emotion.
My wife. My child. Oh.
The game is really to make you feel like you're in an adventure. You know, it's an epic adventure. It's to really make you forget that it's just a game.
I was trying to make you a great warrior. You succeeded.
Not to be outdone, God of War 2 expanded on the legend even further, taking us through the massive world of ancient Greece and integrating Kratos' own quest with the stories of famous mythological characters.
Do you not know who I am? Have you not heard of Icarus?
So it's a sort of an interesting tying together of all these different elements and really bringing together the actual mythology of all of these gods being completely insecure because of the kind of cyclical nature of overthrowing each other.
And like many epics before it, deeper stories can be gathered from the main plotline, such as the tales for Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. The two PSP games shed light and expand on a period of Kratos' life not seen in the trilogy.
Zeus! Your son has returned. I bring the destruction of Olympus!
And God of War 3 provides an epic conclusion to a legend that has woven itself to mythic proportions.
My vengeance ends now.
All of this wrapped up with an intricate theme of vengeance and redemption.
The power of forgiveness comes from within.
Okay, obviously when you talk about story, you always have to start at the beginning. So, David, the story in God of War was actually told mainly through flashback, which isn't very common for video games these days. So, why was that the motivation behind it?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm a big believer in opening. See, I was going to say opening with a bang, but I am not going to get the fucking button. So, but I'm a big believer in that. I mean, like if you look at Indiana Jones, if you look at James Bond, you know, the idea of opening with a suicide, you know, was really compelling. But then obviously the question becomes, well, who is this guy and why? And so we immediately need to travel back in time a little bit to learn that. So that was the initial reason that we said, okay, let's tell things out of order because we need to open. I don't want to open with a tutorial. I don't want to open with learning the character. You just want to get in and play, you know. And so that was that reason. But the other reason was, you know, a lot of times when you play video games, you know, it may take you a day or a week or a month or longer to finish it, just depending on the length of the game and what's going on in your life. And so you tend to forget a lot of the details. And so it was important that the core through line was very simple. It was Raiders of the Lost Ark in Greek mythology. Go get the box. The Ark was Pandora's box. And even if you had, you know, spent 6 months away from God of War because another game came out or you got busy with other things, that was a pretty simple thing to kind of hang your brain on of, I know what this is about. So I didn't want to complicate that through line for that very reason. You know, and then the question was that if that's all you do, you end up with a story that is flat. There's nowhere to go with it. And so the idea behind the flashbacks were that we could still travel that very simple core story, but for people who wanted more, we had these flashbacks that allowed players to learn more and get more of his story. And if you played it all within a weekend or something where you could kind of actually take the whole thing in, ideally it would have been a satisfying experience, and clearly for a lot of people it was. But that's the reason we chose the flashbacks.
So, Stig, you had the honor of actually ending the story, ending the trilogy, but if the rest of you had your way, how would it have ended? I've read some interesting stories on Wikipedia, so I'm actually really interested.
Well, I mean, look, you know, Corey and I mean, I can't speak to where his head is today, but we had a story mapped out that I desperately pleaded with Stig. I remember sitting on the floor of my house in San Diego, you know, pitching you, when we had that phone call. And, you know, and again, as I've said, and I'll say it again here, I think God of War 3 is definitely one of the best games that's come out this year, and I thought it was just an absolute blast. So you guys, I mean, this is no, obviously you're always going to have your own way of what you would have done, and I abdicated that seat a long time ago, and so I have no issues at all. I thought they did a brilliant job, but we had worked out a different story and a different ending that I still think would have been cool. And I've talked about it in the press before, and you know, so it's not like a secret or anything.
Can you elaborate a little here?
No, he's talked about it in the press before.
You know, the high level was, and jump in on the stuff I've forgotten, but the high level was basically you kill Zeus in the first couple of minutes of God of War 3. There's a vacuum in Greek. There's a vacuum on Earth because the Greek mythology religion is in shambles. The other religions and gods rush in, Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, to kind of take over that place now that Zeus is no longer a power. And it really becomes sort of a mashup of Greek and Egyptian and Norse mythology, where Kratos kind of gets to journey to all these other locations. And you know, it kind of sounds like a toy, but you'd have like Egyptian Kratos and Norse Kratos, and he kills Thor and takes the hammer. And I always love the idea that the reason we have the Sphinx in Egypt is he has used the Medusa head to freeze this creature out in the desert, which ultimately ends up being what the Sphinx is. But ultimately, he ends up getting all the gods to fight amongst themselves, thus ignoring man on Earth. And the way Kratos realizes that you kill gods with finality is that you get people to stop believing in them. So as the gods have ignored man, man begins to turn away from the gods, and that's how Kratos kills all of the gods. And now with all of the gods dead, he uses the blades of chaos. We were going to use the 6-axis, and you were just slitting your wrist, and that's how he dies. And the last scene is like sawing a log. The last scene would have basically been two things. There was two epilogues. One was the controllable wise men going towards the North Star, indicating that even with all that Kratos has done, man always needs something to believe in, something to aspire to, and it was the beginning of the rise of the new gods that we have today, and a lot of people would say are also on their way out. And then there was a second epilogue.
Controversial.
There was a second epilogue where ultimately what happened to Kratos, and we had talked about, I know it's been attributed to different people, but the ultimate idea was that the Blades of Chaos were ultimately melted down to become the Grim Reaper's scythe, and Kratos becomes the Grim Reaper. And that was the ultimate way, correct, that we had planned on ending the whole God of War.
That was the way you planned on ending
it.
Well,
come on, it was in God of War 2
No, we had talks. What I was setting up in 2 was this idea that Athena had died and was the first person in the pantheon of gods to actually have a selfless act, to die from a selfless act. So she had kind of ascended to this higher level. And then at first she's somewhat altruistic and being like, hey, wow, okay, I did pretty good. But then she starts to realize, wait a minute, I can actually affect the rest of the world. I don't want anybody else to get up here. I want to, and this is where I was kind of moving towards the monotheism Passover, was the idea of the one true God. She wanted to become the one true God. So she uses Kratos as like this earthly vessel to enact her plan. Whether she admitted it in the 3rd game or if it would continue on past that, it always kind of, for me, felt like everyone's betraying him, and she's the one coming with this cloak of friendship. And even throughout the entire game, she always maintains that friendship, that idea that, look, I sacrificed for you. I prevented you from killing Zeus, but I did it for a bigger reason. You know, there was a greater cause to ensure that Olympus stayed strong. Otherwise, you wouldn't want what was going to come after that. And then she realizes what could come after that would be her in control, her in power. So instead of like Dogma, where Alanis Morissette is God, it would be like, you know, Athena would be God.
But what was great about that, though, was the weapons. It was like Kratos had the 10 Commandments, and he was like, thou shalt not kill. It was awesome. Awesome.
Be awesome.
Were Dana, any ideas? Or even Stig, did you have any other endings that you were toying with?
Well, there's another longer ending than what we did. I mean, there's another place that we could take it and that I really wanted to do. It's something that unfortunately I thought of it too late. Like it really came to me too late, and it was one of those deals that there's no way we could have gotten it done on time. But it kind of sets the groundwork of where I kind of see the game going potentially in the future.
God of War 4, people. God of War 4. While these 5 visionaries have differing views on the ultimate fate of Kratos, they can certainly agree on one thing. The God of War franchise has left an indelible mark not only on gaming history, but also among a whole culture of fans. Let's take a look at the lasting impact of this legendary franchise.